It's great that you have a vision and you want to do all these things, but it's time to apply a little bit of pragmatism and get this game to ship.
I
Yeah.
mean, I still can't believe because I was in my very last month of high school when they showed Versus 13.
I wonder how much money did that just bleed out for it to drag
Millions and
and
millions and millions.
drag like this for years. I can't imagine.
Could you imagine though? Like, just think about all the things you've done in your life between 2006 and now, and imagine being someone on one of those teams that just like that's all they've
Accumulated
done.
$30,000 in student debts.
It's
Uh,
it's hard it's hard to know because I've also seen it suggested that they never really spent much on it because the team was always kept small. And even like
Oh,
when they bring out a CG trailer, that's not the Versus guys doing that. That's Square's devoted CG department, like that's just dedicated to pumping out CG trailers that are doing that. So it's like if you're not making the CG trailers, and every time we see any sort of footage of this game, it looks like it's in like a test environment or it is actually CG, then what's actually being made? Like, was there ever more than like 30 staff on that game ever until
yeah.
recently?
yeah. It's just crazy though, just to think that. I mean, there's a lot of games like that. Like apparently, it took less time to map the human genome than it did for Duke Nukem Forever to come out. I'm not even kidding. That's a real fact.
But like as much shit as I keep giving Square and I have for years, I'm not like over the past like I don't know 2 or 3 years, I feel
Yeah,
like they've been on the upswing more so.
I
Like
I I agree.
I cannot express how disappointed I was with Final Fantasy 14 because I was so hyped for it. Like I never really got into 13, not 13, 11 because I was 13 when it came out or 12 or something like that and I couldn't get my mom to let me use her credit card and I ended up getting into it when I was like 17 and it was so far ahead like I dropped it and so I was hyped for 14 to be a part of it and it was just trash and like my utter disappointment with that has been like completely forgotten. And
Hmm.
I mean, what is it? Type Zero is one of my favorite games. Like that game had me in tears like immediately, and I could not put it down. And I know because I was in Korea when I was playing it, and I had some Japanese friends that were helping me learn since I wasn't taking Japanese classes anymore while I was over there. And I'm sure they were
Shit.
absolutely frustrated with me asking questions constantly because I had that game out all the time, and that game improved my Japanese. But
Gonna
yeah.
gonna gonna send Square a note on Twitter. Literally buying this game because that Majora said it's good. You're lucky.
Pretty much. I mean, I get.
Yeah.
I really like it. Like, my only gripe with it was the camera was absolute trash to the point I would rage quit sometimes. But I'm hearing that they're fixing that.
They apparently they're messing with that in the HD
Yeah,
version.
I was.
like, cause that's really fucking annoying. Like, a bad camera can like totally ruin the experience for me. Like, I have rage quit so many games because of that. But
Shit, that's what's there.
you know,
Just to clarify, like I said, I can probably beat this in a single sitting if we don't save Chris. We don't. So we don't. We're not going to save Chris, are we?
oh,
We can if it like it. This is the point though that we have to make that decision. Are we going to save Chris or not? It's up to you. It's up to you, Math.
It's up to you, Nav. Yeah.
okay, let's not because I have math. But Chris, I love you. It's just trigonometry.
Chris, I love you. Trigonometry is keeping us.
Trigonometry is keeping us
I
apart.
just want you to know that Chris is going to die in a jail cell as the place explodes now. It's okay. We'll save Barry. We'll save Video Game
My
Dad.
fault. It's trigonometry's fault.
You actually get more.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying. No, 14's good. Type Zero has a good reputation as a game, and they took care of 10 and 10 too, which won them some brownie points with me that they mostly took care of those games when they remastered them because 10 was one of my favorite games, so that's great.
I love 10. Like, oh,
Yeah.
I didn't like it much when it came out, and I don't know if it was just I don't, because I liked the older ones when they came out when I was little, but maybe 10 was actually even a little too intense for me. I know it's kind of lighthearted, but maybe at my age, I don't know if
Hmm.
it was just too sad for me to get into, but I didn't like it when it came out. And I think maybe that is it, like the religious overtones and stuff like that. Maybe that was just too
Yeah.
intense
Yeah,
for me.
yeah, there's a lot of stuff in that game that it almost never gets like mentioned for
Yeah.
that it does like way before like games that do it now, it's,
Yeah.
sort of like more
Mhm.
trivially. But yeah, that game is really great, like sort of challenging the notion of religion and everything. The way
Hmm.
that plot plays out was good. Yeah, no, like
Yeah.
that 12. I was not. I was kind of disappointed with when it
I did
first
not
launched.
like
And
12.
I didn't
I did not
either.
like 12 until I got. I appreciate it more now. And if they do the HD version with the new job system, I will definitely want to play that because I do like. I like 12. There's a lot of stuff in 12 that I think is really cool.
I didn't like the
That's what.
characters or the story in that
See,
game.
I didn't either, but I'm also thinking that maybe it's because again
You're
I was
young.
younger, and
Yeah.
not only that, but it took me like a year and a half to beat it. Like I would come back to it randomly and like play it for an hour, and I did that for like I don't know a year and a half, and so I had no idea what was ever going on because I spaced out how often I played it, so I had no attachment.
Yeah, that game it's got a lot. It's got a lot going on for it. I think for the Final Fantasy audience, I think they in that original version, I felt like they were asking you to keep track of a lot of stuff. You had to like
Yeah.
keep the right equipment, and then you would never earn money. You would almost never earn money for anything, but yet you did need to buy things, and then you had to do the license board, and then you had to keep your party like leveled up because you had 6 characters, and you got all 6 of them very quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like in the defense of like I don't know the older ones I like 8 and 9, I liked them as a little kid, but I did not grasp the depth of them at that time either. Like because now I go back
Yeah.
and I play 8 and I'm like, holy shit, this is really dark at some points.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
and
Yeah.
like in 9 is really intense, and like when I was little I never really understood, probably because I would get really impatient and start hitting the X button a lot and not read everything, but you can like understand that there are 2 characters in there that are actually related and all this other stuff, and like all these little backstories that you can kind of pick up on if you do
Hmm.
extra stuff. It's really cool.
There was a depth to the way that the stories were written in those games, starting with like the PS1 game, starting yeah, it's from 8. Yeah, that's right. I'm gonna skip that game. Starting from 8, there's a certain like depth to those narratives that they started to lose once they got up to like 13 because that guy does not know how to write a story, so they just lost track of that. But yeah, there's a really good article from years ago that was on Pop Matters called "Remembering the Orphan" that was all about like the thematic stuff in Final Fantasy 8 that just lays it out beautifully that I still link to people. That just points out how like smart that story really is, and it is totally it's a coming of age story, but it's a metaphor for all
Yeah.
that stuff that's just handled super well. And I think like even 9 also I think is just
Yeah.
perfectly handled. It's almost like that game is almost written like a play where there's a constant cast. There's all these like sets that they go back and forth to, which makes sense when you think about it because there's all these overt like references to plays and playwriting inside that game, including like a
Hmm.
big scene in on disc 3 when they basically do a comedy of errors for like
Hmm.
2 hours with Beatrix and Steiner.
I love that. Oh my gosh, I love that so much. And with
That
Nico
whole
and
circumstance, yeah,
her.
like that
Yeah.
whole circumstance is basically a comedy of errors, which is an old Shakespeare play. So it's like
Yeah.
the whole thing is like a tribute to that stuff, while also being obviously like a tribute to like the first 6 FFs.
Hmm.
I need to play that game at some
Oh
point.
my god,
You
so
should play
good.
that, yeah. You should play. You should. Well, you probably won't play it before we do the podcast, but it doesn't matter. You should whenever you can play it. It's good.
I
Yeah.
decided I was going to be friends with Ron when I saw those Final Fantasy IX tweets. I was like, me and Ron, we're gonna be friends.
That was how she determined my character. This person
Yeah.
is probably decent. That game was great. I'm so glad I played that. I told you guys a friend of mine is that and Grim Fandango are like his favorite games ever. And the game went on sale on PSN for like $5, and I was like, oh, I should get this, and I just started playing it. So that's the best. That's like the best situation to go into something because I had like really no expectations past. I have a friend who really likes this. Oh man, I got in that game real quickly. I was like, oh man, I like the cut of this game's jib.
Yeah. I have
I like
nothing.
this area.
Tune into our Resident Evil stream where we talk about Final Fantasy for 3 hours.
Yeah, did you catch me? I changed the subject there for a second. I like this
We can talk
area.
Resident Evil. Revelations 2 is coming out pretty
Oh
soon.
God, Jeff.
I cannot wait for that.
What about Code Veronica? Sorry, I'm eating Valentine's Day chocolate into the mic, y'all.
That's okay.
Code Veronica?
Code Veronica is a good game, but it's also a frustrating game. We don't have to
Use your
talk.
mic.
We
We're not
don't.
allowed to talk about it anymore.
Hey, when it comes to Resident Evil, I know what I'm talking about. Unlike Final Fantasy, um, but that game, I've actually played Code Veronica like probably like 12 times. Lots and lots.
Oh, I'm casual.
Yeah, exactly, right? I even unlocked the unlimited ammo rocket launcher, which means you have to beat. I think the stipulations are you have to beat the game in under 4 hours without saving and without using a first aid spray. And I actually did that when I was a kid. And the thought of doing it now, it's like no chance. That's really hard
Well,
to do.
I bet you don't own like 3 copies of the game because you're dumb and you keep forgetting that you already own that game, and so you
Jeez.
buy it again when you find it
Yeah.
on sale.
Yeah, I've bought I think I've bought Resident Evil 2 like seriously like 10 times. I don't even know. Like, it's like, oh, it came out on GameCube. It's supposed to be horrible. I'm gonna buy it anyways. That was, like I said, that's what I played on my PlayStation. I literally can't remember what else I owned on it besides Marvel vs. Capcom. Because I didn't even own any of the Final Fantasies on PS1. I just like borrowed them and rented them.
Mm.
Maybe I should stream Xenogears and then or maybe I should play Xenosaga and then Xenogears, since Xenosaga is actually.
You gotta play them in chronological order, man, and then Namco should totally go back
Xen-
and do the actual
wait, hold on. Those two series are they part of a series?
They are. The director once said that chronologically, Xenogear. You know how there's 3 episodes of Xenosaga, and apparently in the grand chronology, because they wanted to do 6, Xenogears would be like the part 5 in the whole saga of like 6 episodes that they never got around to being able to make.
Whenever I'm rich.
You
Fund
just-
my Kickstarter for episode 4 of Xenosaga.
Let's
You're
get.
gonna be like Notch. He's like, yeah, man, I'm interested in making Psychonauts 2. Oh, what? You need $18 million? Nah, man, sorry, can't do that.
No problem. Kickstarter.
Okay. Notch could not afford to make Psychonauts 2 for $18 million, but then dude sells out to Microsoft, turns out and buys like a $2 billion home in LA with a candy room.
Yeah, that guy's
All right,
swimming in dough.
all right, Notch.
Isn't Psycho like I've always heard people say that Psychonauts is good, but like I remember playing it and thinking like the gameplay was awful.
Well, when people were being realistic about it when it first released, that was the criticism, was that this game is very funny and this platforming is very awful.
Well, there was that's like so many of Double Fine's games. Like Brutal Legend is the same thing. It's like it's really funny and like like sharp and witty, but but the gameplay was so terrible.
Yeah.
It was like this
Yeah.
RTS action shit. It was so bad.
Yeah, Double Fine has really found their niche in going back to doing more adventure games, and then doing the Amnesia Fortnite stuff, which like leads them to do like those cool indie things or whatever. But as far as
Yeah.
like doing like, straight up like action games, platformers, it's just not something Schaefer can direct.
I remember internet metal nerds were mad at that game because it's called Brutal Legend, but there's no actual death metal in the game. That's a real complaint. Oh my god.
Hilarious.
Nerds. That game was so bad though. Good god. Like I don't even think I've beaten a Double Fine game. Like at all.
I don't think
I know. I
have
definitely. I've played very few of them. I know. I got Grim Fandango remastered and played a few minutes of that. But it turns out
that.
it's
And I haven't even played that game, so.
that game is an adventure game. I can tell you by which I say you will start and you will need to do things that they will give you no direction for whatsoever.
That's actually
Okay.
a lot of the old adventure games like that have absolutely horrible puzzles that are completely nonsensical. And this has come from someone that grew up playing survival horror games. Like they're just completely nonsensical. They don't give you any sort of inkling of what you're supposed to do. Like you basically have to consult a walkthrough at times, and they totally destroy the pacing. Like even Grim Fandango is supposed to have those.
Yeah, and it does. Yeah, like recently, like before I got Grim last year during the holidays, I played a little bit of The Longest Journey on iOS, which seems really cool. Like that game seems really cool. Like the style is just all over the place. It has like a sort of a decidedly like '90s feel to it. I think it almost feels like a weird like '90s like sci-fi show on MTV or something. It's cool, but it has those weird puzzles like that. So I got into it and I looked it up online, and there was this whole sequence of things that I hadn't done. Despite being in like on like the 4th area, there was this whole thing I had to interact with that I didn't even notice like at all. So I stopped and I was like, okay, I need to come back at this like with a guide. But the problem with that is like every time I'm like, I'm gonna play through a game with a guide, like say Persona 2, I end up playing some of it and then stopping because
boring.
as I've gotten older, I realized playing games with the guide next to you can be really tedious.
Yes, it can.
Yeah, definitely.
Everyone that I even like the people that love Persona 2 told me they play with a guide, and I'm like, really? It can't be that bad, right?
Yeah.
But they're like, yeah, play with a guide. Like
Yeah.
Rosin and I were going to play it. Like we're gonna take turns streaming it, and then like I couldn't stand the random encounter rate in that game. Like I know I snarkily joke about it, but I absolutely hate it. It's
No,
so
it's bad. Like I like that game, but that's bad. Like it's super annoying.
it's like random battles can be fun, but like it's so out of control in that game. And it's because like I was like it's super easy too. Like it's like easier than Persona 4 Golden, but like but it has to be because there's so many goddamn random encounters.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you have to keep the encounter rate and that stuff in check.